The U.S. national debt has blown past $35 trillion, tacking on nearly $1 trillion more every 100 days. That means every taxpayer is on the hook for over $15,000. When the next recession hits, some states won't just struggle, they'll completely implode. Today we're exposing the 10 most dangerous states. Number 10. West Virginia. Once the coal capital, now it's dying a slow death. Since the coal industry shrank by 75% in 2010, high-paying jobs have vanished into thin air. Nearly 20% of residents live below the poverty line, with a median household income of just $55,000, $15,000 below the national average. What's even scarier is the labor force collapse. Only 54% of working-age people have jobs, meaning nearly half have just given up. The opioid epidemic has made this state's overdose death rate the highest in the nation at 84 per 100,000 people. Population loss is making the crisis worse. They've lost 100,000 residents over a decade, with young people fleeing right after graduation. What's left is the nation's oldest population, with 21% over 65. 1 in 5 bridges is structurally deficient, and 35% of the state budget comes from federal handouts. West Virginia isn't getting ready to collapse, it's already in the middle of it. Number 9. Mississippi, America's economic bottom feeder. Median household income is just $48,000, $22,000 below the national average. Nearly 20% of residents live in poverty, with some rural areas seeing poverty rates above 35%. The labor force participation rate of 56% is the nation's lowest, reflecting economic desperation. Education ranks dead last nationally. Infant mortality is the highest, and life expectancy is 5 years shorter than the national average. Rural hospitals keep closing, and 14% of residents have no insurance. A quarter of bridges are rated inadequate, and 40% of the state budget depends on federal transfers. Mississippi isn't just facing recession risk, it's facing the danger of systematic collapse of basic services. Number 8. Michigan. Beneath Detroit's revival story lurks a deep fracture. Manufacturing still makes up 20% of GDP, creating dangerous over-reliance on an auto industry that could vanish overnight. Over 40% of residents face overdue bills, medical debt, or loan defaults. Between 2020 and 2024, they lost 100,000 residents, with 21% of Detroit's homes sitting vacant. 45% of roads are in terrible shape, with annual maintenance needs hitting $7 billion. The lead contamination crisis goes way beyond Flint, spanning multiple counties. Opioid deaths have doubled over decades, and rural hospitals are shutting down en masse. When car sales tank, Michigan catches a cold, just like the foreclosure rates that led the nation in 2008. The rust never stops, it just spreads. Number 7. Alabama. Median income of $59,000 puts it in the bottom 10 nationally, with 16% of residents in poverty. Education has long ranked in the bottom 5, with only 27% of adults holding bachelor's degrees compared to 36% nationally. This drives continuous brain drain to Georgia and Texas. Refusing to expand Medicaid has left 300,000 residents without affordable health coverage. The result? 15 rural hospitals have closed since 2010. Infant mortality is the nation's highest, and life expectancy is 3 years shorter. 16% of bridges are structurally deficient, and emergency funds are among the weakest in America. Heavy reliance on aerospace, automotive, and agriculture makes it vulnerable to global trade shocks. When the next recession hits, Alabama will face total service breakdown. Number 6. Arkansas. This crisis is quiet but deadly. Median income of $53,000 and a 15% poverty rate. Rural areas have scarce jobs and distant health care. 200,000 residents lack insurance, with rural residents often driving 50 miles for medical care after 10 rural hospitals closed over a decade. Only 25% of adults have bachelor's degrees, limiting upward mobility. Though Walmart headquarters is here, automation threatens tens of thousands of jobs. Agriculture and manufacturing profits are declining, with overseas outsourcing and trade volatility making them unreliable. 40% of rural residents lack reliable internet in 2025. That's an economic death sentence. Nearly 45% of state revenue comes from federal transfers, creating dangerous dependence on Washington. Arkansas's crisis is a slow bleed. Families leave. Hospitals close. Young people never look back. Number 5. Kentucky. A textbook case of industry collapse without replacement. Coal employment has dropped over 60% since 2010, with Eastern Kentucky unemployment rates several points above the national average. Median income of $57,000 ranks 47th, with a 17% poverty rate. Some Appalachian counties see poverty rates exceeding 25%. Labor force participation is just 58%, well below the national average. 12 rural hospitals have closed, and life expectancy is 4 years shorter. Opioid deaths exceed 2,100 annually, ranking among the nation's highest. Only 27% of adults have bachelor's degrees, and rural school facilities are outdated. 1 in 10 bridges is structurally deficient, and rural broadband is spotty. When the next recession hits, Kentucky won't just face high unemployment, entire regions will be economically abandoned. Forgotten in the mountains, this state is already teetering between survival and collapse. Number 4. Nevada. Beneath the Las Vegas neon lights, the economy is just one big gamble. Nearly 30% of the workforce directly depends on tourism, hospitality, and gaming, the most fragile industries. When the economy tanks, unemployment spiked from 3.6% to 4.2% in 1 year, and during the Great Recession it exceeded 13%, the nation's highest. The real estate market is equally volatile. Foreclosure rates were second in the nation in 2008, and prices have surged over 40% since 2020. The Las Vegas median home price exceeds $450,000, while median household income is just $72,000. Affordability has collapsed. 20% of bridges are structurally deficient, and Colorado River reservoirs have hit historic lows, making water scarcity an existential threat. With no state income tax, there's heavy reliance on sales tax, tourism tax, and gaming revenue, highly cyclical sources. During the pandemic, visitor numbers dropped 30%, budgets got slashed, and they were forced to cut services. Nevada's economy is essentially a casino bet. It looks great when the chips are stacked, but when the cards fall, it's devastating. When the next economic storm hits, this house of cards, built on tourism, will collapse again. Number 3. Louisiana. A state fighting on multiple fronts, and the data reveals the struggle. 19% of residents live in poverty, nearly 900,000 people, one of the nation's highest. Median income of $56,000 puts it near the national bottom. The economy heavily depends on the volatile oil and gas market, creating dangerous boom-bust cycles. Hurricane Ida in 2021 caused over $75 billion in damage, and the state lacks financial reserves for quick recovery. Every hurricane season is an economic threat. The Civil Engineers Association gives it a D+ rating, with 1,500 bridges structurally deficient. Baton Rouge and New Orleans face ongoing flood risks, and coastal erosion swallows a football field's worth of land every 100 minutes. Brain drain is severe. Over 70% of LSU graduates leave within 5 years. Many rural parishes are seeing population freefall. Healthcare coverage is low, and medical access outside big cities is difficult. Louisiana isn't just fiscally fragile, it's literally sinking. Poverty, weak infrastructure, oil dependence, and repeated natural disasters are driving this state toward collapse. Number 2. Hawaii. It looks like paradise, but for residents, it's economic hell. The median home price exceeds $850,000, while median household income is just $88,000. An average family would need to save every penny for nearly 10 years just to afford a down payment. Home ownership is virtually impossible for locals. Cost of living is the highest in America. A gallon of milk costs over $6. Gas often exceeds $5. Food, utilities, and daily necessities cost nearly double the mainland because everything has to be imported. The economy dangerously depends on tourism, nearly 30% of GDP. The pandemic exposed the vulnerability. Visitor volume plunged 70% in 2020, and by 2024 was still 15% below pre-pandemic levels. With tens of thousands unemployed and state revenue collapsed, Native Hawaiians are leaving in record numbers, squeezed out by soaring home prices, vacation rental conversions, and wealthy investors. Between 2010 and 2024, tens of thousands of long-term residents left, while retirees and foreign investors who can afford the costs poured in. There's a doctor shortage, and rural areas lack medical facilities. Import dependence means supply chain disruptions immediately leave shelves empty. Energy prices are the nation's highest. Nearly 80% of food is imported, making it extremely vulnerable during global crises. Hawaii may be a paradise for the rich, but for ordinary residents, it's a financial nightmare. Even paradise can collapse. Number 1. Illinois. Beneath Chicago's skyscrapers and world-class universities lurks the most dangerous fiscal crisis in America, a pension time bomb. The retirement system is underfunded by $139 billion, meaning every resident, including babies, owes $11,000. This is the nation's deepest pension hole, and it's getting wider every year. Credit ratings hover on the edge of junk status, the only state in that position making borrowing costs skyrocket. Property taxes are the nation's highest, with some homeowners paying 2.2% of their home's value annually in taxes. A $300,000 property means over $6,600 in annual taxes, crushing families and driving residents to flee.